If you're a weather enthusiast, and since you're listening to AMS on the air, I think there's a very good chance that you are, then do we have some exciting news. A global community of weather enthusiasts is waiting for you. The AMS Weather Band, a new initiative by the American Meteorological Society, is a vibrant online community of radar watchers, double rainbow hunters, teachers, learners, and everyone in between. Gain cutting-edge insights about the weather that interests you the most. Share your love of science, from wild weather stories to jaw-dropping photos and videos. Gain exclusive access to weather experts, plus lots of fun content and interactive features. Learn all about it and join today at weatherband.org.
Welcome to AMS on the Air. I am Irene Sands.
I'm Dakota Smith.
And I'm Jeff Rosenfeld, and we're here to podcast about all things weather, water, and climate.
Welcome to AMS on the Air. This is a special episode of the podcast. We recorded it during the American Meteorological Society Centennial Meeting in Boston at the beginning of 2020. On a personal note, I am a new mom. I am a broadcast and digital meteorologist with the great blessing of working from home while handling a full-time job, consulting gigs, a husband, family, and my baby girl, Victoria, now in the terrific twos. I am sure I'm not alone, but it sure feels like sometimes we are, especially when you have your first child. This is why in this episode, I chat with 3 other mommy mats in search for answers and help with concerns. They're professional women that work in academia, work rotating shifts, or have their own meteorology companies, all and each dealing with the situations that life throws at us, at work, at home, and most times with multiple children. This was recorded just before the pandemic, and life got a little bit more complicated after this recording. We're all here to provide some insight to our lives and to tell you it is possible. Enjoy.
All right, so I am Irene Sands. We're here today with 3 wonderful women in the field of meteorology, in the field of research, in the field of academia, and then 2 in the field of the government. And today we're going to talk about being a mommy and coming to conferences and working shift work and working while you're doing research and working while you're doing a proposal, working while you're teaching. So let's see how this evolves. And if you're listening to this today and you have questions or you're feeling like you're alone, I'm sure you're not alone in this. So for my first guest, Barbara.
Hi, my name is Barb Mayes Boustead, and I'm a meteorologist and instructor in the National Weather Service's Warning Decision Training Division. I've been in the Weather Service now for 17 years plus, and 13 of those years were field shift working, operational forecaster work. So I did have a fair amount of time doing those rotating shifts, including some of the time after my son was born. Have since moved into day job, and I'm sure we'll get to that.
How old is your boy?
My son is 5 years old.
5 years old. Okay, Elise.
Hi, I'm Elise Schultz. I am a senior research scientist with CFD Research in Huntsville, Alabama, which is a government contracting company. I'm the only meteorologist there currently. My past includes going through grad school. I got my master's, got pregnant during my Ph.D., and then continued on being a research scientist at the university, did a little startup work, and then now at my current company. So my son is 7, and I have a daughter that's 3, almost 4 next month, and then I have an 18-month-old daughter as well.
Wow. Karen?
I am Karen Hatfield, and I am a forecaster at the National Weather Service's Weather Forecast Office in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I've been in Tulsa for about 11 years now, and I have almost a 20-year career in the National Weather Service, all of which involve rotating shifts. So I have 2 children, a 9-year-old son and a 7-year-old daughter, which obviously I had while I was dealing with rotating shifts. So I figure we'll get into that at some point as well.
And we will. And I work in broadcasting, so I just had my daughter. Well, not just had my daughter, but a year ago. And I'm trying to make it to a point to keep up with my career too. I mean, you all have kids, and they're older now, so I'm seeing that it can be done already. So thank you. But also I've brought her to conferences. This past year, I brought her to the broadcast conference. Yes, it was a hike. I brought my mom too, obviously, but it's not impossible. And I know it can be hard, but the support system has to be there. And I think that's something that we need to give credit to our spouses, our partners, our moms, dads, to aunts, whatever it is,
And our colleagues.
And our colleagues, too.
I've had colleagues, Chris was session chair and I was presenting, and so someone had to hold the baby.
Yeah.
And so people jumped in.
Yeah, and people love to jump in. I took it from when I went to the conference with my baby. People were just like, oh my God.
I took my baby to a conference, and it wasn't actually a weather conference. It was my side gig in a nonprofit, but I had him with me nursing during the conference and then take him up on stage while I had to give an introduction, and people were very accommodating.
Yeah.
And understanding. Of course, my mom was there too, though, for support. So
yeah. So let's start talking about schedules. I can talk a lot about broadcasting schedules, but I don't think it compares to shift work.
Oh, I think it compares too. Those are all hard schedules.
Yeah, but just having a family and daycare. What happens when daycare and you have to work? The middle of the night shift.
We talked, it was mentioned a lot about the support system. And one of the things that I can say is that doing what I do with the rotating shifts and having to work midnight shifts every 6 weeks or 7 weeks, depending on, how many vacancies we have, my husband is crucial. So he thankfully works a Monday through Friday, 8 to 4 type of job. I honestly give kudos to people that both of them work rotating shifts, because I knew you dealt with that a little bit, Barb, but I don't know how they do it. So my husband, he can pick up the slack like, anybody that's worked mids, you kind of have your own way that your body likes to sleep on mids. And I guess the way that my body does best is I sleep a little bit in the morning and I sleep a little bit more in the evening, which means that a lot of that evening stuff, like helping the kids with homework and getting them fed when I'm on mids, that falls to my husband. Taking care of them when I have to work weekends or if I have to work a 16-hour day because of severe weather. So besides him, friends or family, it takes a tribe.
It does. It really, really does. And she mentioned that you had your spouse working shift work too?
Sure. For the first few years of our son's life, we were both working rotating shifts. And that was incredibly challenging. I wish I could put some sunshine and roses around it and say it was okay, but ultimately we couldn't make it work.
So you're here.
I'm here.
There we go.
But it was incredibly difficult. We did what we called handoff parenting. We had to go into opposite shifts because it's incredibly expensive and prohibitive to try to find 24-hour care. So we hardly saw each other. We would hand the baby off to each other. It's your turn to parent now. I'm going to work. When it came to severe weather, who is going to be the one who gets called in? Well, you can choose one of us, but you can't have both of us. It was challenging for us. It was challenging certainly for the office we were working in because they also had work around us.
Office.
We were in the same office. Yes, it can be done. It's helpful if you have a community support network around you, family or somebody local who can help. We didn't have that. And some people make it work for a long time. We made it work 3 years, and then we found another path.
It's challenging because, in our field, we move a lot. For the NWS, yes, once you have kids, you probably settle a little bit more. But in broadcast, I've moved to I don't know how many cities already in the last 12 years. And my husband is also in the media. So whenever there's a hurricane, and it happened this last year, I got called in because I'm the meteorologist. He does sports. Luckily, he's not a meteorologist too. But when we get called in, he gets called in because he has to go report on the hurricane about whatever it is. Right. So he's not doing sports, and he has to go in. So he came up with me to Orlando. We stayed there for a little while. Dorian just stalled. So his station called him. He had to go back, bring the baby, drop the baby with my mom, and then go work. And it's just so nerve-wracking because you're in the middle of a storm at times. And you just have to trust, of course. My mom was taking care of the baby, and there's nobody else you can trust more probably than your mother. But, but yeah, it's, you just blind it completely. You just hand it off and just focus on your job. And how do you do it? How can you disconnect from your child or for your mommy duties to work?
That's hard. But for me, I try to focus. I need a break from my kids sometimes. I'm a very strong introvert. They're extroverted, and they're kids. And so I need a break. And so I welcome that break and try to focus. You miss them, especially you're traveling here to conferences. I have like a 3 to 4 day where I'm good. I'm enjoying. Okay, now I'm starting to miss my kids, right? But it's building that network. As you said, your community. We don't have family close by, so it's building family. Right? So we needed a babysitter one day. We went through 17 people. And I was like, wow, we have 17 people. It took 17 people.
Great.
But it's like we do have, and learning to ask for help. It's okay to ask for help. And having those discussions. We had the discussions early on in our relationship. How do we work this if we move different cities? What our jobs? My husband's also a meteorologist. So trying to weigh that before we got to those points. And so his career did more early on, and then my career, now he takes off for sickness. He takes off for doctor's appointments because he has a lot of leave. I don't. Going to conferences, we have to get our parents to help, or we've brought our child with. We brought our son when he was 5 weeks old to a conference.
You
Yeah.
went to a conference when he was 5 weeks old.
You went to a conference?
Post-surgery, went to a conference. I wanted to go because I just wanted to show that I am committed to staying in the field, right? And looking back, that was a little crazy. But it was what I needed, though, at that point. But yeah, building those support networks. And I think a lot of us are so passionate that it helps, I think, when we have to be away.
As much as I miss my son when I'm not with him, I can't imagine not doing my work and doing my job. It's a very important part of who I am, just like being a mom is a very important part of who I am. And I think it's important for him to see me in that working role in addition to being in that mommy role. So I haven't brought him to a meteorology conference, but he does occasionally come to work with me on a snow day or a day off of closure of daycare or something like that. And he sees what mommy does at work. Oh, mommy does radar at work. Well, I teach about severe weather. He's not that far off, I also think one of you mentioned, maybe both of you mentioned about how we move around. That happens across our profession. There are only so many places where there are weather jobs. And I think a lot of us end up resettling or moving to places where we don't have family or a built-in support network. And we have to get there and start from scratch and build it all up again. Sometimes multiple times in our kids' childhood. And it's difficult when you first get there and, you find one babysitter and then have to find another. And it's...
And building that trust. We went to a conference one time and we were gone for 7 days and our neighbor watched our son when he was 2 or 3. And then we were funded different ways, right? So we're flying back through different cities. We both got stuck.
Oh.
And so then we had to call her, like, hey, can you watch him till tomorrow morning? And she's like, I'll bring him to church. It'll be fine. Don't you worry. But so it was okay, but you just panic. You feel very vulnerable in that point.
We had a nightmare situation happen where we cut it a little bit close on planning for me to come back from a conference before my husband went in for a mid-shift. I was going to be coming back around 8 or so in the evening, and he had to go in at midnight. And sure enough, there was a delay with my plane. There wasn't weather. It was just a mechanical delay. And I ended up being stuck for the night. And we had to go down our friends list. Who can come stay the night with our child so my husband could go to work? It's really too late for him to call in without causing a big problem.
That's us this week.
Until I can get home. Likewise, we're on different flights going back. My mom is with my child this week, and they come back a day after we do. So we hope that if there is a delay, we've built in enough of a cushion. Lesson learned.
Yes. Well, that's like I fly back Thursday afternoon. He leaves Thursday morning for a field campaign. Oh. So we have a backup in place, right?
Good.
You just don't know. So it's having those, being resourceful with your resources, and I wanted to add about having the support, the husband support, because my husband, he is the one that brings the girls to daycare. He's the one that usually pick the girls up from daycare, unless it's mommy needs to pick them up today, just for mommy picking them up, right? So without that, I wouldn't be able to be as successful, possibility to be successful. It wouldn't be there.
I'll echo that too. Our marriage and our parenthood is an absolute partnership. If one of us is out of commission for a couple weeks, I have absolute faith that he can pick up and take care of everything. I think he has that confidence in me. But we've been that way from the start because it was forced on us by the rotating shift work that we were both doing. We both had to be capable of fully taking care of our child for a duration at a time. And I think that made him really absorb and take on that role of being the father very strongly. And I see other women, not necessarily in meteorology, just on the mommy groups in Facebook, whose husbands won't lift a finger. And I can't even imagine what that life is like because I've had that partnership and I'm very lucky to have it.
How do I build a trust for somebody else to take care of my child? And that's what I'm going through, honestly, right now.
I just watched around, and nobody's going to be able to see this because there's not a video, but every one of us, as Irene said that, went and kind of sucked in our breath and kind of drew in a little.
Yeah, how do you do it? And we have tried to, my mom works too, my aunt's in town, and, she works too. So I feel like yesterday, for example, my husband had to go to work for a couple hours. So it's like this whole orchestra of, okay, what pieces do we move? How do we move them so somebody that's family can stay with our child? We have tried to look for a babysitter for a year already. We have not left her with once with the neighbor. Babysitter is not really, Right. And how do I let go? Or how do I trust, I guess?
That's really hard because one thing, I'll just give my example of this week here in Boston. My husband loves this city, and so he wanted to come up with me for 2 or 3 days, even though he has no association with the weather community outside me. So we got my mother to come up, and I felt really stupid, for lack of a better word to use, because here's my mother who raised me and my 3 siblings. I think all 4 of us are, really good and independent and strong adults.
Did a good job.
Yeah. But I still went through the process of writing a basically 1-page front and back. I saved it on my computer as Kids Handbook. Now, it wasn't because I don't trust my mother, but it's because, just little intricacies like this is what goes in their lunches.
She likes this, he likes that, yeah.
Yes, this is how, since both of my kids, one is a 1st grader, one's a 3rd grader, they have homework. Yeah. And some of the intricacies about this is what homework needs to be done on Mondays and this is what you need to sign. It's all stuff that I know because I went to the parent conference that day.
It's not telling her how to raise your child or what to do. Yeah.
This is information that I think is out of the norm.
Yeah.
This is logistics, right?
Yeah,
logistics
there we go.
Hard.
We have a document on Google Docs for whoever watches our kids.
I've had multiple versions of our document as well. It grew as my child grew, but we needed babysitters as young as a couple months old, and I was very specific in my instructions, probably more than I needed.
So
to
what
be.
you're saying is I shouldn't feel stupid for
No.
writing that document.
No.
But I just feel bad because mine was about 4 or 5 pages long.
Well, and my mom is they're coming. They should be getting there soon, like within the now, and she asked for that, even though they may not be there without us. It may work out, and all be good. But she asked, she's like, "What do they put in the lunches?" I'm like, "I don't know. Ask my husband because he cooks." So I'm like, I really don't know. I'm like, yeah, ask him, right? And so that kind of stuff. She was asking for that because she didn't want to mess with their schedule. And as far as the trust, I'm at the point now where I'm like, I need to go do something. Do you look like a reasonable human being?
You're in your 3rd child, so by this point, you're like, here you go, y'all take care of each other.
On top of, with my 1st child, I'm the oldest of 5.
Okay.
And so it was different than maybe a lot of first-time moms. But we are lucky in that we're connected to the university still, all the graduate students. So from day one, we had friends that were grad students, and we trusted them, like, here, go take my child for while I'm doing this piece of work or whatever at work. And then it grew to where they would watch our children for a couple hours. And so now it's got to the point where we've trusted them. Plus, now that they're older, there's different feedback.
They can talk.
The oldest can help, and you were more worried about the babysitter than your kids. Yeah.
Good luck.
See, I was pretty lucky from a daycare standpoint in that my husband works for a school district, and the school district that he works in, he's very lucky that they actually have a daycare in the district that is specifically for, if there's any high schoolers that have any children, they can take their kids there, and it's for the employees. So just because it was easier because of my shift work, not only was it nice from a trust standpoint that I could send my kids with my husband, and basically it was his coworkers watching the kids. It was still with my first one, I still cried the first time I went in there because I'm like, you're going to be taking care of my baby and not me. But it wasn't necessarily because I distrusted them. And one of the things that's nice too is that when the daycare is not in session, say like during the summer, because my husband is a 12-month employee, so he has to work even when school's not in session. The women who work at the daycare, there's been several times that like 2 or 3 of them, they have said, we'll watch your kid during the summer.
Okay.
So if I'm working day shifts, or mids, because, I need to sleep at some point.
Yeah.
They will, one of them will watch. And in fact, I got a call the other day from one of them who used to work there that had watched my kids before, and her high school daughter is looking for, babysitting work basically. And she's like, do you have somebody to watch the kids? So it was almost like that trust came naturally because it was people that my husband knew, and that helped. I know not everybody has that, but
it's difficult. It's difficult to let go and let go of the trust too.
And I think for anybody who's looking for childcare, if they already have the daycare and they're looking for someone in the evenings or different things, to reach out to those childcare providers or daycares, because they've already had the training and all that.
Many of them are under contracts that won't let them babysit at night, though, so that won't be a universal.
Okay, so it depends.
Yes, because they don't want. There's a couple of reasons. It involves a favoritism issue or someone getting a little too closely aligned to a family in the daycare. It can also be a liability issue for their school. So there are a lot of facilities that don't. So my husband and I were much more like traditional in we had to have a place to take our child to daycare. So we started out at a center, and it is the one of 2 times where the place we picked kind of failed us. It didn't work out. They weren't. I didn't think they were being as good with the infants as they should be, and we moved the kiddo to an in-home daycare with just one person watching a couple of children, and it was wonderful. But she was just a small practice and ended her practice. So then we had to go back to a center, but we found a magical one, and we loved it. And then we moved, and we had to start all over. Our first choice place didn't have openings, so we found another place that had an opening, and it seemed okay, but turned out to not be what we hoped either. So then we had to again go through the process of finding another daycare, found a place that we liked better, and that's where he's been since. And that's just the daycare. That's not the babysitting after hours.
Yeah. That's just hard.
Where we lived before, we had some neighbors who had kids, and we noticed the same car parking at several of our neighbors' houses from time to time. And we asked what babysitter that was, because if everybody around us trusted this person, they must be pretty good. Mm-hmm. And so we got her name, and she ended up being, of course, a magnificent babysitter. We ended up trusting her enough to take a weekend away and let her watch our child even.
Oh, wow.
I'll
get that one day, maybe.
Yeah.
You need that.
Yes, you do. And my family is far away. My mom's willing to come, but she's hundreds of miles away, and we can't always fly her in. Mm-hmm. So that became an incredible resource for us. And then we moved, and we have to start all over. And we did ask a couple neighbors about their babysitters and found one that way, and found another one that didn't work out so well. She ended up going away to school and didn't have a chance to really get to know her. I actually have a coworker who babysits for us now because she loves children, and I trust her too. So,
now as professionals, how has being a mom changed being a professional?
More focused. The time management, because you have to be. You only have so much. You have to get done when you have to get done. Like at work, I can't just stay and just do it, and whenever it gets done, then I can leave. No, I have to be gone by 5 o'clock so I can beat traffic and make it to after school care and get my son and get home and get to basketball practice or whatever it may be. So it's made me more efficient, I think. Same at home. Like you have to do this. And I've also, and I'm still working on this, that I can't bring work home I keep trying. I'll put my folder in my bag, and it never gets touched, and I just have to let it go.
I was actually just telling this to someone earlier. One of the ways that it's affected me is because I have so much more things to do, in the evening or in the morning, depending on which shift I'm working, to, help my husband and, do things for my kids, that it's very similar. I have to leave the work at home. And I know that there's people that I work with that they will actually still look at the weather once they get home, or they'll be watching some severe weather outbreak unfold in another part of the country. I can't do that.
I think before you have kids, we probably all did.
Exactly. And I don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, unless it's just something, a hurricane, I'm going to sit down on the couch and I'm not going to move and I'm going to watch TV so I can see it all unfold. Or if it's a tornado outbreak, say in the Texas Panhandle where I'm from, because I've still got family out there, I'm sitting there watching that then. But if it's, just something that really doesn't have my attention, I shut it off. I'm not on my phone watching it or anything. I'm completely focused on, have I made the kids' lunches? Check. Have I cooked dinner? Check.
Going through your Google
Absolutely.
sheet. Got it.
Those both apply, what you both said, but I'll add another one just to add a different flavor to it. And for me, I really think it has made me both a little more empathetic and more emotional as a human. I definitely had a switch after my child was born that emotions just struck me harder than they used to, or I was less able to put them aside. And I don't know if that was a change in my biology or a change in my awareness of the world around me, but I carry more emotions and show more emotions than I used to. I have a lot more, I feel like I have more empathy for what's around me. And that could be anything from literally the people who are close to me and having some understanding that I've gained about their family situations and what they could be going through, to a more general, broad awareness of all of the different challenges people face. And I think for me, becoming a mother awakened some of that in me. I don't think I was a horrible human necessarily before, but I do think I see it more now than I used to.
Wow. I think it changed me as a meteorologist, having a kid, and how you question why do people respond the way they do to a tornado warning, for example. And you wonder, why did they make this choice? My son's first day at daycare was May 20th, 2013. The Moore tornado. I was however many miles away, right, in Huntsville. So he was fine. But as I'm watching all that and seeing everyone on social media and all the
picking up my kid right now.
Everything, right? I was like, I'm gonna go get my son. And so at that moment, I understood why people leave positions of safety to go through whatever to get their kid. It's the mama bear, right? And that just has changed how I look and how I respond. And I think it's made me a better scientist, a better meteorologist, but just that the timing of that day.
Yeah.
And I'll add one more thing. I truly believe it has increased my patience.
Yeah.
Yes.
Whether that's, again, dealing one-on-one with a colleague where I've learned how to slow down and talk through some of the things I'm talking through, and how to use positive reinforcement. And I don't want to say it's like I'm parenting my coworkers, but you use some of the same communication techniques because they're good for humans.
Yeah.
And you learn what's good for humans by this child who you're trying to do the right thing for.
Yes.
So using that positive connection with people, using natural consequences, sometimes you have to let people ride and fail even so that they can learn and succeed. And that is a really hard thing to do as a coworker, as a mentor, as a person. But I do think that's something parenting gave me too.
I'll throw in something that's slightly negative that has happened.
We'll take those too.
That has happened to me. I feel a lot more guilty about a lot of things now because, obviously, weather does not stick to Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. There are some days where, one of my colleagues may call in sick and they need to fill a shift on a Saturday. And, I get that inevitable text message from whoever's working that's, can you fill the shift? Or can you stay late to work severe weather? These sorts of things. And there's sometimes that, you really want to be in two places at once. And I feel like I'm in a no-win situation because I want to be there for my coworkers, but I want to be there for my family. And, another example, we had a really big severe weather event in my area, first of many, on April 30th of last year. And I had taken that shift off. I was supposed to work the day shift because my daughter asked me to go on her field trip with her. And I was thinking, it's a day shift, no big deal. It's easy to fill. They'll just take an X shift and put it in there, And then that ended up being, small tornadoes, but still tornadoes like all across Northeast Oklahoma. And I'm sitting there at home, after the field trip with my kid there, and I'm feeling guilty because, it's like I wanted to be there for my kid because she asked me to, but my office needs me too. And I will fully admit I have a hard time dealing with that guilt of not being able to be in two places at once.
Yep.
As irrational as that sounds.
Yeah. I can relate too. I work for a TV station, but I work from home. So to me, my days feel very long sometimes and very mixed because I work from home and everything's just at the same time, pretty much. What I want to split them and separate them a little bit. And it's so hard to just cut yourself in two or in four if you have more kids, and just, you can't do it. So I have a hard time of which one do I let go? Well, it's important. Your job is important. As a mom, as a woman, as a professional, it's everything. But your kids, of course, too. And how do we deal with it? What's the first thing that we let go when something like that happens,
I think it depends.
It depends.
Yeah.
Depends.
Situational.
So I had some really great advice that when I went and heard someone speak, and she was an entrepreneur, and she was saying, if I promised my son I would be at this game, and it's between that and winning this contract, there'll be more contracts. And so she set her priorities. And so since then I've said, okay, what are my priorities? What are my boundaries? And asking for help. Like, those are the three things. And sometimes a priority is work.
Yeah.
And it's communicating that to the kids when they get old enough to understand. And we've had that discussion with my son. My daughters will get it eventually. But it's, what are the priorities? Where am I? And that's day to day, too.
Yep.
One thing I learned somewhere along the way is that when you talk about a work-life balance, there's no such thing as a balance of it. It's a choice every day.
Yeah.
Today I have to work more. Tomorrow I need to be at home more. And it could change day to day, and it depends on what's going on in either place. But you're never going to strike that perfectly posed balance on ice. You're just constantly swerving from one to the other.
And don't compare to others, because I see other moms that are like, I can't do that because I was away from my kids Monday, and I need to be with them every other night this week. And I'm thinking, I saw my kids Monday. I might see them again Saturday.
Yeah.
Like, there were some days I saw them for a whole 15 minutes in the morning getting ready. But I just have to remind myself, this is my life, this is my choices, and I'll spend Saturday with them. Each situation's different.
Yeah. All right, so if your kids are a little bit older, but if you can give your kids advice when they're your age or when they're professionals in their own field. Today, we're putting them in a little time capsule. One thing. It can be as women, it can be as professionals, it can be as moms.
To my son, I would say support the people around you and the situations that they're in. And just because something was done your way for your childhood or that you do it your way for your kids doesn't mean it works for everybody. Let them choose what they need to do.
I'd probably echo what I just said of having, what are your priorities? Where are your boundaries? What's important to you? And don't forget to ask for help when you need it, and give help to others that are around you that need it, that are trying to, like the teamwork, I guess, comes with that.
I wish I could just repeat what both of you said. But I guess kind of an interesting way to add to what you guys, have said too, is that, you can do it all, but your all may not look like somebody else's, if that makes sense. I know, my path is not normal. I'm not always with my kids in the evening. I'm not always with them on weekends, all of that. But, I really wouldn't wish for anything else. So as hard as it is.
No, and I think as women, we struggle with that. We want to do it all because we can do it all. That I know that has been like instilled in me.
Yes.
And putting yourself a priority. That's the biggest thing. That's been my biggest thing the last 5 years. When I had some health issues, was putting myself as a priority, taking mommy time, because you need mommy time to be a better mommy to your kids. So you need to focus on you too.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, ladies. This is great, and I'm sure this is going to help a lot of women out there that, are struggling with how do we keep being professional? How do we keep going in the career? Because, there's a huge drop in women in the sciences. Yes. Once they start going in the field, even more when they have kids, when, they get married. And you can do it all, I guess. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for listening to this episode of AMS on the Air. If you have any stories or want to share tips with us, make sure to follow us on social media. We are on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And also make sure to subscribe to the podcast so you can get notifications whenever we publish the next podcast.
I'll be winner.